What is going on, guys? Zuko back with another Dragonflight video. Hope you're all doing very well. We're going to talk about the announcement yesterday from Blizzard on new Mythic Plus affixes in 10.1. That's right, they are getting rid of some affixes and bringing in some brand new ones. So this is really interesting. I'm going to do a take today that is essentially a positive take on these new affixes. I think I watched a couple of videos yesterday, and a lot of people are having negative reactions to what Blizzard is trying to do in Season 2 of Dragonflight when 10.1 launches. And I understand why, but I want to try and take a positive outlook on this, sort of maybe be the devil's advocate here, whatever it is. And I want to hear what you guys have to say in the comments down below, of course. Dratnos did a great video on this, but he kind of had a negative outlook on it, or a neutral to negative outlook. It wasn't entirely negative, but like it was a little bit like he was worried about this new system that Blizzard is bringing in, these new affixes. So we're going to talk about the blue post, and then I'm going to talk about the little more in-depth guide that Wowhead did on some of them because it's very helpful. And yeah, we're going to go from there, okay? So what is happening? Hello, adventurers. Ember of Neltharion PTR has been updated. What's happening? Okay, Vortex Pinnacle. We can talk about that in a different video. There are new affixes and adjusted affixes available for testing. Here we go. New affix, Incorporeal, however you want to say that. While in combat, incorporeal beings appear and attempt to destabilize players with spells that reduce their damage and healing. Incorporeal beings are susceptible to all forms of crowd control. We'll get back to that. Afflicted. While in combat, afflicted souls appear that seek the aid of players. Afflicted souls will spawn with poison, curse, and disease afflictions, all three. Removing any of these afflictions or restoring the spirit to full health causes it to despawn. Failure to remove these afflictions in time will inflict players with a negative status effect, okay? Very interesting. New affix, Entangling. While in combat, entangled vines snare players, okay? We'll get to what that means in a minute, okay? There's more on that. Okay, so these are the three new ones, Incorporeal, Afflicted, and Entangling. They are going to be replacing Quaking, Grievous, and Volcanic, which are going on the shelf for now. Blizzard is getting rid of Quaking, Grievous, and Volcanic. I don't mind Quaking. I'm happy that Quaking is going. It's so awful. I'm glad that Grievous is going because it's kind of just, like, I didn't mind it as a healer, but it's just annoying. There's no interaction with Grievous. And this is the first point that I want to make here is that Blizzard is making an honest attempt here at taking affixes that had very little interaction and giving them some actual interaction, right? Quaking, you just run away from everybody else, hopefully in time, and if you're not jammed into like a tight corridor, like hallways that are in all kinds of dungeons, then if you're just jammed in there, you might be just screwed. You might kill everybody. Grievous is just more healing required. That's all the affix says. People take damage over time. It ramps up and gets really, really annoying. So you have to just heal more as a healer. It's totally non-interactive. It just demands more healing. Volcanic is like, take one step to the left. Now take one step to the right. That's Volcanic, right? So these are kind of like largely non-interactive. And Blizzard is saying, you know what? We're going to make things interactive. Incorporeal, you have to crowd control these guys. Afflicted, you have to dispel these guys or full heal them. Okay, Entangling, you have to rely on your movement breaking, snare breaking, invulnerabilities to movement impairing effects, all that kind of stuff. You're going to need to use that stuff while you're entangled. We'll get to that in a second. Okay, so that's what I think. First, that's the first point. I think that Blizzard is intending on taking mechanics that are non-interactive and replacing them with ones that are interactive so that you have a means of outplaying the mechanic that is already there. And I think that's really cool. We have good examples of that already in the tree here. So like Sanguine, for example, is a great affix. When Sanguine is on the ground, you can deal with it in multiple different ways. Oh, hit spacebar. So I'm playing my monk here. I Ring of Peace early because I'm trying to stop these guys from casting Domination. But what I didn't realize is that one of them was about to die, and I basically Ring of Peace them into a Sanguine puddle. So this is me playing Sanguine wrong. I had the right idea of like stopping these guys from doing Domination, but I ended up not thinking about Sanguine and the fact that these guys were about to die, and this guy full heals, not full heals, he heals a lot. Look at him healing there. So that is a mistake, right? That's me playing Sanguine wrong. I'm doing it wrong. Here's an example of me just doing it a little bit right. There's already Sanguine on the ground. The tank is trying to kite backwards, right? There's another Sanguine puddle that goes down here, and there's multiple mobs standing in it, so I can ring a piece them out of it, make sure that they don't walk backwards. Now, that's a very light example, but you understand what I'm trying to say there. With Sanguine, there are ways to play around it. Druids can push enemies out. Shamans can thunderstorm enemies away. Monks can ring of peace enemies out of Sanguine. That is an interaction that you get to have with this mechanic, which is fantastic. That means it's a good mechanic. Spiteful is just awful. I don't know why they didn't get rid of Spiteful. I hate Spiteful. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. There's no interaction with Spiteful because inevitably one mob will die before every other mob, and then you're just stuck there trying to like CC the one Spiteful mob. It's really dumb. I hate Spiteful, but Sanguine is a great one. Bursting is also actually not a bad mechanic because bursting is kind of like a DPS mechanic, right? If a whole bunch of enemies start dying all back to back to back to back, you can actually interact with that as a healer. You can Spirit Link your group when they're at 7 or 8 stacks of bursting and try and heal them through it. You can just revival it off as a Mistweaver Monk, right? There's other ways to deal with it. Or you can tackle it from a DPS point of view and say, you know what? We're going to pull less mobs, or we're going to funnel certain mobs down, and we're going to kill 3 or 4 mobs at a time, even though we're pulling 8 to 10 mobs at a time. We're going to be very careful about how our DPS handle this pull so that we don't overkill ourselves on bursting. That is an interaction that you get to have with the game, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing, okay? Raging is a great one where you can have certain classes that week really shine, like druids, hunters can soothe, right? So there are examples of good mechanics that have interaction, and then there's examples of ones that have no interaction, basically. And I think Blizzard is saying we want to get rid of the ones that have no interaction and bring in the ones that do have interactions, and that's a good idea, I think. Here's another big change they made: explosive. Fewer explosive orbs spawn, but they now have substantially higher health. This is potentially a worry, and I totally agree with Dratnos in his video. He talked about the main problem with explosives is not that they take too many GCDs to hit, which can be a problem. Like right now, we one-shot explosives. The problem with explosives is that the more mobs you pull, the more explosives spawn. And sometimes it gets ridiculous, right? If you pull 5 mobs, you get 2 explosives. If you pull 10 mobs, you get like 4 explosives. If you pull 20 mobs, you've got like 8 explosives. It's just way too many. So if they're going to take substantially more GCDs to kill, then I'm really hoping that it doesn't scale really badly with the mob size once again. Like, if you pull 10, 15, 20 mobs, are you going to get 4 of these explosives that are, like, super, super Giga Chad, high-health explosives? Like, how many GCDs is it going to take to kill them? We're going to have to find out. We can't test any of this stuff right now. I think Dratnos said that this weekend it will be available, so I'm going to try and jump on and get that. But this is sort of to be determined. We're going to have to see how this kind of works out. I don't mind them changing it so that you have to invest more GCDs into killing an explosive. I think that's actually fine, but we'll have to see how it goes. I think this is still going to end up being largely a healer mechanic, which if it takes me like 3 or 4 GCDs to kill this thing, I'll be very mad. But we're just going to have to wait and see. Okay? So let's look over here. Let me look at, here's sort of my positive take on why I think these affixes are actually a good thing for the game. Okay? So number 1, we'll look at Afflicted. This one's kind of a no-brainer. An afflicted soul will periodically spawn with disease, curse, and poison. So it has all 3. If you don't know, all healers in the game can either do disease or poison or curse. Some healers can do 2 out of the 3. I think Evoker can get all 3. So, again, we don't know the specifics about this. If you're fighting a bunch of mobs and then just one afflicted soul pops out, I'm assuming it's only going to be 1, because if it's more than 1, then, like, you're going to have more than 1 dispel in your group, which honestly is not actually that hard to pull off. Like, all monks can get disease. Paladins can get poison and disease. Priests can get disease. They obviously have magic, but they can get disease. Shamans can get cursed. Druids can get cursed. So, like, you're off, like, your non-healers that are in the group, they can probably contribute to this if multiple afflicted mobs spawn at the same time. If it's only 1 afflicted mob, then your healer can just easily deal with this. This is not going to be an issue really at all. But it looks like they spawn with these debuffs, and then they start a 10-second cast, is what the Wowhead guys are thinking. All you have to do is heal the Afflicted Soul to full to stop the cast, or get rid of their disease, curse, or poison. One of those three. If you have a curse dispel, boom, you do it, and then they're gone. If you have a poison dispel, boom, you do it, and then they're gone. So I think that this is going to be very, very easy. But the way that this is worded is a little bit worrying. While in combat, afflicted souls appear that seek the aid of players. So afflicted souls appear. Like, is that multiple souls? I'm not really sure. We're going to have to see. If it is multiple souls, that makes this affix much more interesting, in my opinion. But there's still counterplay, which is great. This is what Blizzard, I think, is trying to create. There's still counterplay. Lots of DPS in keys will have the ability to get rid of a poison, a curse, and a disease. There's very few specs in the game that actually can't do that. So I think very likely you're going to have a druid or a shaman or a monk or a pally or even a warlock can do it, right? Mage can get rid of curses. So I think it's very, very likely you're going to have an extra DPS in the group that can get rid of one of these things. And if like 2 of these mobs happen to spawn, you're still okay. But I'm really hoping that they don't make it so it's like 5 afflicted mobs spawn. Like, that would be really dumb. And I don't think that's going to be the case. So we'll just have to see. The downside to not completing Afflicted, they don't do any damage to you, which I think is great, but they reduce your haste by 100%. So, not good. For 10 seconds. Not good at all. You don't want this to go off. But I think this is an easy one to deal with. And again, there is counterplay built right in here. Your healer can mostly deal with this one, okay? Entangling. This is the one that people are really mad about and worried about. And I'm going to talk about this one for a second. So, Entangling looks straightforward and not how the tooltip of the affix reads at all. Players will get attached to a vine, slowing them by 50% and forcing them to run away from the anchor point within 8 seconds to snap the vine. We've done quests that are similar to this, right? Otherwise, they'll get stunned for 3 seconds. Highly mobile classes will find this affix pretty trivial. However, 50% slow can easily cause death, and that is true. I think that is actually very true, and that is potentially a danger to this affix. But let me just bring this over really quick, and I'll just zoom in. Let me make this bigger. So, every class in the game has a way to help deal with this, okay? So, DKs have... I think they could potentially just AMS this away. Even if they can't, they have Death's Advance, which stops them from being reduced below a certain threshold anyway, and they have Wraith Walk. Like, DKs are not going to have a problem with this slow. They can easily just Death's Advance and get away, or just Death's Advance might clear it all on its own, okay? DHs can just fly away, they can Fell Rush, they can Infernal Strike away if they're in Vengeance spec, and they can just Vengeful Retreat. Vengeful Retreat clears all snares on you, okay? Druids can shapeshift into any form, and that will free you from any route that's on. You can Stamp Roar away to help your entire group get away. You can Wild Charge to an ally if you're like in human form, or you could Tiger Dash away. There's so many ways for a Druid to do with it. Evoker can hover, fly away. You can Verdant Embrace to an ally, or rescue an ally away and take him and you away from both of the vines. So you can kind of help them. And then Zephyr is the movement speed increase. So there's lots of ways for Evoker to do with this. Hunters can just disengage and it will immediately break all roots and snares that are on you. Mage can just blink and they can blink back. You can blink multiple times to get away. You could probably just ice block it off as well. Monks can just roll, of course. Tiger's Lust clears roots and snares. Paladins can freedom, and you can now freedom another person, and you both get freedom, and you get a movement speed increase. But freedom just drops all snares that are on you. Now, I'm assuming that the roots can be dispelled, essentially, by all these movement-breaking effects. And if they can't, then I think it's a really bad mechanic, because then it doesn't incentivize you to talent into any of this stuff. Body and Soul is 40% movement speed for Priest. With Power Word Shield, you can do Feathers. And then there's a Phantasm passive at the top of the class tree for Priest. Fade removes snares. So there you go. Priest can remove it. Rogues can Sprint. They can Shadow Step. They have Fleet Foot. Shamans can Ghost Wolf. They can Spirit Walk, which clears all movement and spec. They can Gust of Wind. Thunderous Paws also removes snares and gives you a speed buff. Warlocks might be the weakest one here, but they can still Gateway. They can teleport with their demonic circle, and then they can Burning Rush away. Burning Rush is like 55% movement speed if you have the extra talent for it. So, like, Warlocks are potentially the weakest one here, not being able to clear it in any way, but they can just run away with Burning Rush. Warriors can Leap, Charge, Intervene. Battle Stance reduces the amount that you need there. So, a lot of people were like dooming about this Entangling one. They were like really worried that this is just going to wreck your entire key. I don't think that's going to be true. Again, I'm trying to take the positive angle here, but I just really honestly think that every single class in the game has a way to deal with the entanglement. Most classes in the game can just dispel it. They can just break it, like Freedom, Tiger's Lust, Shaman, Ghost Wolf stuff. Like, there's so many specs in the game that can just deal with it, or blink away really quickly, or dash away, intervene, leap away, whatever you want to say. There's a lot of ways to deal with the entangling roots thing. So as long as your movement abilities like Tiger's Lust and Freedom can actually clear the vine and you don't have to run the full distance away, then this mechanic will be fine. If those abilities like Freedom and Tiger's Lust don't work on Entangling, then it's really bad. And this is an awful mechanic, and it needs to work that way. Because otherwise, why would you spec into any of these really cool extra pieces of utility if it doesn't work on a mechanic like this? So again, this is an opportunity for Blizzard. They've created something that looks really detrimental. It is really detrimental to have a 50% slow, but if you can counter it by having a bunch of really cool tech, maybe a Rep Paladin could give Freedom to a Warlock, and then they both just ignore the mechanic. That is really, really cool gameplay. It puts the power in the hands of the player to be able to outskill the mechanic, rather than it just being, you take more damage, you need to heal more. It's like, you actually have to think about the mechanic and do something about it, and that's really cool. I love that. I think this is a great idea, and I think lots of classes have a way to deal with it, okay? Last but not least, Incorporeal. This adds a mob that needs to be controlled. So this is the healing / dispelling ad. This is the movement ability problem. And now this is the CC ad, the crowd control ad, the one that you need to control on the battlefield. It has a 20-second buff duration according to Incorporeal. I think it's down here, but yeah, here it is. And it can't be reasonably killed. So it sounds like it's invincible, basically. It forces players to deal with it for 20 seconds. It has a destabilizing spell, 8-second cast that must be stopped, or else it applies 50% damage / healing down for 10 seconds. So you don't want this to go off. It sounds like for 20 seconds when this mob spawns, you have to CC it, or kick it, or push it away, or paralyze it, or Ring of Peace it, or whatever you want, because it says that it is susceptible to all forms of crowd control. So it sounds like you can do anything. You can cap totem, you can, stuns, stuns, kicks, in caps, like anything. Movement, you can push it away with a Druid Typhoon. Lots of different things you can do to this ad. So this one seems actually pretty easy. It's just that it is going to be up for 20 seconds, and you don't want to ignore it. If I'm doing the math right, it looks like you need to kick it like 2 to 3 times, basically. Because I think it has a long 8-second cast. So you could just wait till it's almost done its 8-second cast, then kick it, and then wait till it's like 5 or 6 seconds through and its next cast, and then you stun it, and then it won't even probably get through its final cast. So that one doesn't seem too hard at all, actually. But I really love Blizzard's theme here. This is the Dispel one. That's basically primarily going to come from the healer, but could come from anybody with a Dispel. This is the movement problem one, and you can actually help your allies with like Blessing of Freedom. You could put Windrush Totem down. You could roar as a druid. So it really is incentivizing players to like spec into this utility to help their team or to help themselves. And then this one is the CC ad, where you need to spec into crowd control of some kind and help your team control this enemy while also dealing with everybody else. The Incorporeal one might tax your crowd control a lot, and so I think you're gonna have to be kind of careful about this. Like, you don't want to waste an entire cap totem on probably just the one Incorporeal mob, because like as you climb into higher Mythic Plus, you must use your crowd control in order to deal with like to buy your team enough time for them to survive and to stop really dangerous casts from going off. So I think this Incorporeal one could potentially be really difficult in terms of taxing your crowd control abilities, but here's my conclusion here. I think that overall, I like the direction that Blizzard is going with the affixes. I want more of this. And I think Dratnos in his video was like, he didn't like the idea of what they were doing, but here's my kind of take on it. I think you want affixes to be interactable, to provide interaction with your class with your spec to make you think a little bit about your talent choices and what you're doing that week. Maybe you've got an Incorporeal week, so you might think to yourself, okay, I need to make sure that I've got my cap totem. Maybe I want double cap totem with cudgel so that it goes off twice. I can stun this mob twice. Maybe that brings so much extra value this week as opposed to the next week when I'm dealing with an afflicted mob and I need to make sure that I'm bringing my curse dispel to help out my healer so that they can deal with the multiple mobs that are spawning, if that's what happens, right? It's much, much better than just saying, oh, Quaking's going off, run away. Oh, Grievous, you need more healing for your team. Oh, Volcanic, you have to take one step to the left, one step to the right to dodge this volcano. Like, this is a better direction for Blizzard to be going with affixes in the game. I think this is very, very good. Now, whether or not it's going to be completely awful with some of the other combination of affixes, we're just going to have to wait and see. But I think that generally speaking, this is the direction that Blizzard should be going with their affixes because it provides interaction with your kit and it really highlights the utility that lots of specs bring that adds value to those specs. And that's a really wonderful thing that we want in this game. It's not just about damage and healing, it's about the utility as well. So please let me know what you guys think about this in the comments down below. I would love to hear your takes. Don't go too hard on me. Be nice, okay? But I really want to know what you think. Do you think that this is an awful direction for Blizzard to go with the affixes, or are you like me and you kind of like the idea of what Blizzard is trying to do? Maybe you want it fleshed out a little bit differently. Let me know in those comments down below. All right. Thank you guys so much again for watching. Love you all. I will see you in the next one.